Greetings, dear viewers. You're watching the Crestmoto channel. In this episode, I want to tell you about the history of German Victoria motorcycles, which originated from the city of Nuremberg. You shouldn't confuse this manufacturer with Victoria Motorcycle Company in Glasgow, Scotland, which produced motorcycles from 1902 to 1928, and, of course, with the American motorcycle brand Victory. The company from Nuremberg isn't exactly well known. However, despite this, it has a very interesting history, which I will now tell you about. Make yourself comfortable, it's going to be interesting. It all started at the end of the 19th century, when the world was swept by a bicycle boom. Two namesakes and avid cyclists, Max Ottenstein and Max Frankenberger, decided to turn their passion into a business, and in 1886 they founded the Frankenberger and Ottenstein Bicycle Factory. And until 1901, the company's main activity was the production of bicycles and spare parts for them. It is worth noting that business was going quite well. In just the first 2 years after production started, about 1,000 bicycles were produced, and in 1893 there were 259 workers at the factory. The company started with penny farthings and very quickly moved on to bicycle designs that are more familiar to us. In 1895, the company was renamed Victoria Fahrradwerke AG, and when motorcycle production was about to begin in 1899, the factory's name was changed to Victoria Werke AG. Sensing the success of their business, the two Maxes decide to make a bold entry into automobile manufacturing. In 1900, the development of the first Victoria car was completed, which was awarded a gold medal at the Automobile Exhibition in Nuremberg. However, overall, the company's cars were not successful. In 1901, the first Victoria motorcycle debuted, equipped with a Fafnir engine producing 1.75 horsepower with a direct belt drive to the rear wheel. For the first 2 decades, the Victoria company did not produce its own engines and readily installed power units from Fafnir, FN, Kudel, Minerva, and Zadel on its machines. In 1906, the first 2-cylinder motorcycles appeared, with power ranging from 2.5 to 3 horsepower overall. The production of such rather primitive designs continued until the beginning of World War I. After World War I, production was resumed in 1920 with the very modern for its time KR1 model, which was equipped with an M2B15 Boxer engine from BMW, 494 cubic centimeters, 6.5 horsepower, and a 2-speed gearbox. We won't focus on this engine any further. I'll tell you more about it in a big documentary about Boxer engines, which will be released quite soon. The KR1 also had an interesting front fork, which included telescopic elements. After BMW started producing their first motorcycle of their own design, the R32 model engine supplies to the Victoria company stopped. Do you think they were very upset about this in Nuremberg? Not at all, because somehow Victoria managed to lure the talented engineer Martin Stoll away from BMW, who was the one working on engine development. For the new KR2 model, Stoll developed a new overhead valve Boxer engine with 9 horsepower, and already in 1924 the KR3 motorcycle model followed, with a 12 horsepower engine and a 3-speed gearbox. However, if you make excellent motorcycles, that's only half the job. You need to make a name for yourself, and the best way to do that is through races or record runs. In 1925, a certain Steinlein built the first German engine with forced induction. In 1926, Adolf Brüd set a new German speed record of 166 kilometers per hour on such a motorcycle. In 1927, a new model, KR6, debuted with an engine capacity of 596 cc. And a year later, for discerning speed and thrill enthusiasts, the sporty KR7 model was offered with an engine boosted to 24 horsepower. At the end of the decade, the Victoria Company decided to expand its range in the light motorcycle segment with the KR20, a side valve 200cc model, and the KR35, an overhead valve 350cc model. In 1930, this family was joined by two 500cc models, the side valve KR50 and the sporty overhead valve KR50S. And the engines for all these models were purchased from the British company Sturmey Archer. A year later, Victoria's motorcycle with a boxer engine won the European Hill Climb Championship in the sidecar motorcycle class with an engine up to 600cc. This was the 20 horsepower KR6 model. And from that moment on, some of the company's models would proudly bear the well-deserved title Bergmeister, which literally translates as mountain master, or more elegantly, alpinist. In the first half of the 1930s, a political event took place in Germany that had a major impact on everything, and it also affected the production of Victoria motorcycles. In 1933, the National Socialists came to power. Sturmey Archer engines were no longer used in motorcycles due to the import ban, and Franz Ottenstein, the son of the company's founder, Max Ottenstein, was removed from his position as director and board member because he was Jewish. Since 1933, the KR8 model was produced with a parallel four-stroke twin with side valves and a displacement of 500 cubic centimeters, which was developed by Martin Stoller. A distinctive feature of the engine design was the almost horizontal placement of the cylinder block in front of the crankcase. This engine produced 15 horsepower. Initially, the engine had problems with valve overheating and was soon improved, being introduced on the KR9 Farmaster model in 1935. The valve system was quite original, designed according to the exhaust over intake principle. From the same year, the KR35B and KR35G models with patented Leclerc cylinder heads went into production, which were replaced in 1937 by the KR35 Sport model with a Columbus overhead valve engine. For the KR20LN Lux and KR25S Aero models, new Richard and Save Kuchen engines were used. Since 1938, the lineup included the four-stroke models KR35SN with 18 horsepower and KR35SS with 20 horsepower, both with Columbus engines. At the same time, there were two-stroke models W99N, fixed KR12N, and KR15N developed by Albert Roeder. With the start of World War II in 1939, all production of civilian motorcycle models was stopped. For the Army's needs, the KR35 Pioneer model was kept on the assembly line, which was produced in a series of 4,000 units, and some KR9 Farmeister motorcycles were also taken for military use. The motorcycle was mainly used with a sidecar. The Victoria Werke factory also produced the Riedel starter, a two-stroke opposed engine designed by Norbert Riedel with an extremely short stroke, which served as a starter for the Junkers Jumo 004 and BMW 003 jet engines. Air raids on Nuremberg largely destroyed the Victoria factory, so by 1945, only a small part of the production facilities remained intact. At first, production resumed in the form of consumer goods, kitchen appliances, milk cans, and so on. However, they did not want to waste their experience in motorcycle manufacturing. In defeated and devastated Germany, there was a demand for cheap and simple motorized vehicles. And in 1945 and 1946, such a vehicle was a motorized bicycle, or even better, a motor that an ordinary person could easily install on their existing bicycle. At the end of 1946, the auxiliary bicycle engine FM38, developed by Albert Roeder during the war, made its debut. 38 is its displacement, and this little engine produced 1 horsepower. In 1949, the pre-war model KR25 Aero was reintroduced, and a year later, in 1950, the model W99 was re-released as the W99BL Fix. The KRD25 Aero was now equipped with a telescopic fork. Also during this period, the Vicky 1 and Vicky 2 mopeds with the FM38 engine were introduced. And to make a statement, the Germans planned another record. In 1951, a specially built machine with the FM38 engine was ready. Georg Dottervik, behind the wheel of this streamlined moped, on April 12, 1951, on the track between Munich and Ingolstadt, accelerated to a speed of 79 kilometers per hour, thus setting the first world speed record in the class up to 50 cubic centimeters. A much higher speed was planned, but a fall during testing due to a gust of wind led to the use of a less powerful prototype for the actual attempt. This record would be broken as early as January 1952 by the Ducati company, but that no longer mattered. Victoria was the first. By 1951, the company was already on solid footing. The number of employees was 1,300, and production volume had doubled compared to pre-war levels. At the same time, the company also began producing sewing machines. In 1953, the company expanded its product range by including the KR26 Aero model, which was developed based on the previous KR25. But the most outstanding model, not only in 1953 but in the entire history of the brand, was the W35 Bergmeister. It was completely developed from scratch by the brothers Xaver and Richard Kuchen, and the unique appearance of the motorcycle was given by a longitudinally mounted V-shaped four-stroke overhead valve air-cooled engine with a displacement of 350 cc and a cylinder angle of 64 degrees. This unit produced 21 horsepower, which allowed the solo motorcycle to accelerate up to 135 kilometers per hour. Look at how solid and beautiful this motorcycle appears. In 1954, Rudi Ebert won in the up to 500 cubic centimeters class on the V35 Bergmeister in the 2,500-kilometer Liège-Milan-Liège race. Later on, companies like the Japanese Maruso Lilac, Moto Guzzi, and Honda with the CX-15 model would rely on Victoria's experience in building exactly these kinds of V-twins. By the way, there are episodes about Maruso Lilac and Moto Guzzi on the channel. I recommend them. They also have an interesting history. In 1955, the two-stroke 200cc Peggy scooter with 10 horsepower, developed by Norbert Riedel, entered the market. It had 16-inch wheels and a top speed of 85 kilometers per hour. The main feature of this little machine is its gearbox. The Peggy was equipped with a 4-speed transmission with electromagnetic shifting. Gear shifting was controlled by handlebar buttons. Such an unusual solution for the global motorcycle industry of those years was not something exceptional for the German one. For example, similar transmissions were used on Zundap mopeds. There was also a 12-volt electric starter and an electric fuel level indicator. The starter generator, driven by friction rollers, was mounted on top of the engine and constantly operated as an alternator. The device was quite cool, but very expensive due to the use of advanced technical solutions. A technically similar motorcycle model, KR21 Swing, was just as expensive to produce because of these high-quality technologies. By the way, it was suitable for use with a sidecar. They abandoned the starter in this model and used a 6-volt electrical system. The last Victoria motorcycle was developed in 1957 and was equipped with an Italian 175cc Perilla engine. The model was named KR17 Perilla. During the short production period from 1957 to 1958, just under 400 of these machines were built. I should note that in the late 50s, Victoria tried its hand at building microcars. Back in 1956, the company Bayerische Autowerke released the Spatz 200 microcar with a plastic body and a Fichtel and Sachs engine with a displacement of 191 cc in order to counter the crisis in the two-wheeled vehicle industry. Then the little car was equipped with a 250cc engine from Victoria and an electromagnetic 5-speed gearbox like on the Peggy. A total of 729 of these little cars were built. Despite its attractive shape, the compact car found few buyers, and Victoria's next automotive venture turned out to be unsuccessful. The fact is, by the late 50s, this class of vehicles was clearly on the decline. People's purchasing power had increased to the point where they could afford almost full-sized cars. The enormous expenses led the company to a sharp decline. In search of a solution to the problems, it was decided to merge Victoria and DKV into a new entity called Zweirad Union AG. Victoria brought to the new company the Vicky and Express moped lines and its good name, while DKV contributed the Hummel model. The merger did not solve all the problems. Now there were no longer any motorcyclists in the company's management who were passionate about complex engineering, racing, or high aesthetics. There were only capitalists there who were interested only in what sold best. By 1966, Zweirad Union had also gone bankrupt and was absorbed by the larger Hercules Verke. And that meant the name Victoria finally disappeared from motorcycle dealers' price lists. Hercules owned the rights to the name Victoria, but was forced to give them up because they hadn't been used for more than 5 years. In 1995, the company German Hartje KG in Hoya acquired the rights to the Victoria trademark and produced bicycles under that name. This marked the end of the story of the interesting and original Victoria motorcycles from Germany. And my story is coming to an end. Thank you very much for your attention. This was the Krasmodo channel. See you next time.